Hey there, guys. Welcome. Come on in. For those of you who are on live, please comment the word live below and let me know what kind of business you have, where you're calling in from, because I always like to tailor my examples to fit you and your business. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Sarah Nicole Nadler. I'm a licensed financial advisor. Gosh, what am I? I'm a money coach for businesswomen, and I help my clients to learn how to become confident investors. I think a lot of women feel very uncomfortable around money. I had one girl the other day who told me, she asked me what my blog was about, and I told her, and she was like, "Oh, budgeting and taxes, my favorite things." I roll, right? And I was like, yeah, I totally understand. That's what a lot of women think I feel about money, is that it's sort of this like awkward, uncomfortable topic that's sometimes tough to accumulate, harder to hold on to, and really, really easy to spend, right? So today we're going to be talking about some strategies for retirement. But when I use the word retirement, about 50% of my audience immediately like jumps out of the room, right? Like, oh, I don't want to retire. I'm a business owner. I love what I do. I never want to retire. So I want to give you a new definition for retirement today. When we talk about retirement, I'm really talking about financial freedom. I personally believe that the old retirement model is just kind of dying. Like, you're hearing on the news a lot about, how retirement should really be 75 instead of 65. And that's really because it's becoming harder and harder for people to actually save and invest, because the cost of living is going up and up and up, and wages are staying the same, right? So even for 9-to-5ers, who are the original crowd that retirement was even developed for, it's even becoming harder for them to retire, much less for business owners, who retirement was never really supposed to be for business owners, right? Retirement was something that business owners offered to employees originally. That was, if you look at the history of retirement in the United States, that's kind of this whole business model of how do we keep workers happy and make them want to work longer, right? So when I talk about retirement, I'm really talking about financial freedom. How do we build this dream lifestyle where you are not stuck trading time for money for 40 plus hours a week, and instead can deliver an immense amount of value to the community around you and have this outbound value to your society without having to trade time for money to do it? Right? So you get to live your dream lifestyle, still be providing a massive amounts of value in exchange for money, but that value is not tied to your time. That's really what I'm talking about when I talk about retirement. Again, if you're coming on just now, say hi in the chat. I would love to hear what kind of business you have, where you're calling in from, so I can tailor my examples to you. Okay. So today we're going to look at, how can a business owner retire, period, right? Like, how does that even really work for business owners? And then I want to go one step further and talk about, if you're not really interested in building retirement, if you really think you're going to just work every day until the day you die, and that's totally your plan, then how can we still build in some bulletproof financial situations for you, right? How can we make it so that if you're ever incapacitated, if you ever get ill, if you ever have, a child going through something, you want to take some time off, or you want to go off for maternity leave, like, how do we actually build in a little bit more financial freedom than most business women have? So that's what today's training is going to be all about. If you have any questions about this topic, please comment them below, because I will be watching the comments and I will be answering them in the order that I receive them. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to dive into this topic of retirement. What does that really look like for business owners, and how does all of this work? All right. So again, for those of you who don't know me, I am a money coach for businesswomen. I have helped hundreds of businesswomen now to build wealth, to scale their business. And only just a couple of years ago, I went back to school going, you know what? It's not enough for me to just help businesswomen scale and scale and scale and scale, right? Because I was seeing too many situations where women would reinvest all of their dollars back into the business and get themselves in these tight financial situations where now you're trapped, right? Now you have to work every single day, sometimes 7 days a week, to keep this big, huge business that you've built going, right? So that's when I started to get really interested in, how do we create financial freedom as businesswomen and not just keep scaling the business and scaling the business, scaling the business, okay? So those of you who have never watched a training like this, every single Monday, I go live at 1 p.m. Central, and I like to share, a topic that I'm hearing a lot about from my audience, from my paying clients, or just things that are coming up in the news. I like to talk and go a little bit more deeply to increase your financial literacy. That's what Monday is all about. This is free training every single week to just increase your financial literacy. And I always have a freebie, a giveaway that goes with the training. So if you're interested in the workbook that goes with today's training, just comment the word workbook below. You'll get my ultimate retirement guide for busy business owners, because there are 5 strategies for retirement that are only available to business owners. 9-to-5ers can't even get into these. They don't have access to them. So if you're a business owner and you want to learn more about how retirement really works for business owners, definitely comment the word workbook below, and I'll make sure you get a copy of that. Okay. So let's dive into that. I built Fierce Feminine Finance after my experience working with business owners made me realize that the old retirement model is just kind of dead, right? Back in 2018, I was working as a business coach in a corporate firm, and the company I was working for put on this workshop for existing clients. Okay. I was not the speaker. I actually got to sit in on this workshop from Eric Miller, who's the founder of Econologics. If you're not familiar with them, Econologics is a financial firm that specializes in helping private healthcare practitioners to retire young. So if you are a doctor and you own your own practice, that's who Econologics works with. So, I was really, really new to this whole idea of retirement for business owners. I didn't really understand how it works. So I watched this workshop from Eric Miller, and it blew my mind. Okay. I was like, oh, that's how it works. Like, that's how, and why is that so different from like Dave Ramsey and, the other financial gurus that you hear online? And why is that so different from like Edward Jones and what they're pushing? Like, why is it so different? That's what I didn't really fully understand. And when I watched that workshop, like, it blew my mind. Okay. So basically what I learned was that the history of retirement in the United States, because retirement was never meant for business owners, right? Retirement didn't exist really in the way we think of it today until only about 100 years ago, at which point big businesses, right? We'd had the industrial boom in the United States, and big businesses were trying to find ways to make workers willing to work harder and longer. And so they invented this thing called retirement to get buy-in from their employees. Okay. So if you think about it, when Eric Miller said like retirement was never meant for business owners, what he meant was this traditional model of retirement that we think of. So I want you to do this exercise if you've never done it before. A lot of my audience have already seen me do this exercise before, so we'll go through it quickly, but go to investment calculator. Okay, it's calculator.net/investment calculator. And what you're going to do is you're going to enter in how much you currently have saved for retirement. When I was age 30 doing this for the very first time, that number was 0. I celebrated my 30th birthday with a business I loved, but no other investments. I didn't have a single dime in the stock market. I didn't own any real estate. I owned nothing but my business. Okay, so if you're at 0 like I was, put 0 there. Then in the next column, I want you to write down how many years or decades you have left before retirement age. And this is whatever age you want to be when you retire, okay? You can leave the return rate at 8% because that's a pretty good average, and you're going to keep compounding it annually. And then I want you to add in here at the bottom how much money you could afford to invest every single month for retirement. Okay, so when I crunched these numbers at age 30, I discovered that I would have had to invest $750 per month every single month for the next 40 years just to have $2.5 million, which was the amount I needed to hit my retirement lifestyle. And I went, why would I do that? Like, that is so much work, so much effort, so many decades just to finally get to experience the lifestyle that I'm wanting to experience right now. Like, it just didn't really make sense, right? And I think a lot of millennials, especially like people my age and younger, are really starting to recognize that this is just not a good business model. So you can definitely do this too. Like I said, go to calculator.net/investment calculator and crunch in those numbers for yourself. But here's what's really fascinating about this. At first, I was just like, oh, you know what? This makes sense. I'm 30 and, this just isn't the model I want to use. So I'm just going to go with the model that Eric Miller taught me instead, right? Which I'll get to in a minute. But then over time, I started to network with so many other businesswomen who are much older than my age, right? Like women who are in their 50s, already in their 60s, women who are past retirement age and had spent their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and early 60s building that business, right? Scaling that business. And now you have this highly profitable business that you love and you probably never fully want to retire, but you're starting to slow down, right? Medical issues start to come up. Your body just starts to slow down. And you go, wait a minute. I always thought I was never going to retire, but now I'm starting to realize that it's not super good for me to not have any way to retire if I need to, or ability to take a year or two off if I want to, right? And so that's when I started to realize the true power of what Eric Miller had taught me at that workshop. Because it's not just for girls like me who were like in their early 30s and going, oh, which direction do I want to go, right? No, what I'm about to teach you is helpful for you, no matter where you are, no matter what age you are. If you own a business that you love, okay, but you're looking at the financial future that you've painted for yourself and you're going, that's not what I want, this is going to blow your mind. Okay. So anyway, I didn't want to get off topic here. Hey, Angel, I'm glad you're here. Let's get back into the training and definitely let me know if you guys have any questions as I move forward. Okay. So luckily for me, Eric taught me this better way than what we just looked at, right? That's sort of like the Edward Jones, like, hey, your Merrill Lynch, like put money in a 401k and invest for 40 years and hope that you have enough at the end of that, right? That's one business model of retirement and it works for some people. It was never meant for business owners. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, right? So it was never meant for us and it's also dying, right? So we're going to talk about a different strategy. What we're going to talk about is instead of retirement, we're going to talk about how do you achieve financial freedom. So financial freedom has, people throw this term around a lot. Let's define what financial freedom really means. Actual financial freedom simply means your monthly passive income exceeds your basic expenses. And when I say basic, I mean the basic expenses of your dreamy lifestyle. So not the basic expenses of you in poverty with 20 children who you can't feed, right? That's not what I mean when I say basic expenses. Let's raise our standards to where basic for me means all my nut is covered, right? Like the lifestyle I want to lead, I can lead it because I have passive income that covers those expenses. Once you've achieved that number, which I call your freedom number, you no longer have to trade time for money. You're still trading value, right? The passive income streams you've got going on, they're putting value into the world. Like Angel's a great example of this. Angel, because you're here on live, I'm going to use you as an example. I happen to know that Angel does a lot of real estate investing, but she doesn't just only serve the super wealthy with her real estate investments, right? She has a strong purpose behind the type of real estate investing she's doing, where she's helping people who maybe couldn't get into more traditional housing to get into a home, right? So that's a fantastic type of investing where it's not tied to her time, right? Being a landlady is actually pretty minimal in terms of the amount of time you have to spend, right? And in addition to the fact that it brings passive income, there's also value there. She's bringing value to society, right? So this is where sometimes we have to kind of part ways from the whole get rich quick crowd, right? The get rich quick crowd is like, whose back can I climb over? How many dead bodies can I leave in my wake? Like blood money kind of crap. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about finding genuine ways to bring value to the world, like online courses, selling digital products, doing real estate, rental properties, multifamily, right? Like there's so many ways we can invest our money or invest a little bit of time up front to build this asset that cash flows every single month that's not tied to our time. And when we do that enough times, we achieve financial freedom. And the advantage here is that you're still living your dream lifestyle. Maybe that dream lifestyle has you doing public speaking, right? That was totally me. I did public speaking, paid speaking gigs every single month for 2 years straight, and I loved it. And then I got a little burned out, right? So I still do them, but just not quite as often as I was doing it before. But to me, my dream lifestyle is where I am now, right? I'm living on a 16-acre farm. I get to grow my own food. You know, I'm starting to learn about sourdough starter. You know, I love what I do. And I built this lifestyle from that framework where my farm actually gives me passive income every month. So this is what I'm talking about. When I say retirement for businesswomen, I'm not just talking about investing in the stock market. Do I have stocks in my portfolio? Absolutely. Do I invest in the stock market? Absolutely. But that's not the point here, right? The point is not the vehicle. The point is to get to Vegas. If you're trying to get to Vegas, you can argue all day long about whether an airplane is better than a car. Well, an airplane's faster, but a car is cheaper. You know, like we can get into all these arguments about what vehicle you're using. But the real question is, where are you trying to get to? Right? The old crowd, they're trying to get to about $2.5 million in assets so that they can then take 4% of that every year in retirement at age 65, right? That's not where I'm trying to get to. That's Los Angeles. I'm trying to get to Vegas, right? Vegas is cash flowing assets that pay me passively every month now, today, so I can be retired now, right? That's what I'm talking about. And this is why age doesn't matter. Angel says that's not going to be enough. Yeah, good point. 2.5 mil will probably not be enough for a lot of people, right? I'm curious what your freedom number is, Angel. I'd love it if you could drop that in the chat for some girls who might not have a good concept of it. I think my freedom number is a little bit higher than most. I don't like to share it because I think it gives people this like failed purpose, right? But if your dream lifestyle is you just want to own your own home and raise your kids and things like that, maybe your freedom number is only about $3,500 a month. You know, for some people, that would be a really good freedom number for them. Anyway, I'm really curious to hear what your guys' freedom number is, but I digress. So how do we come up with our freedom number? Number one, take a look at your ideal day. And remember that not every day is going to be the same. So if your dream lifestyle includes you traveling 6 times a year, great. Let's break that down by 12 months and make sure we're including that in the budget, right? This is where budgeting actually becomes fun because we're using budgeting to build our dream lifestyle and to increase our freedom number to where it needs to be. Once we figured out what your ideal day would look like, now all we have to do is just literally jump on Google and look at our bills list and figure out what would it cost to live that dream lifestyle. I can tell you one of the funniest mistakes that I see women make all the time is they say they want financial freedom, but they can't actually tell you the number, right? Like they don't know their budget. They don't know how much their bills are. They haven't actually calculated what it would cost to travel 12 times a year, right? Like they don't actually take the time to take that crazy dream and bring it down into reality. But it's only when you actually name what you want and get hyper specific about what that would look like that we can start to make it a reality. Okay, so this is a very, very important step actually. All right, so let's say you know your freedom number. What's the next step? Like I said before, there are 5 ways that businesswomen can retire that other people just don't have access to. 3 of them involve selling the business, right? Either for a lump sum or owner financing, so you have passive income from the person who bought the business from you. Another option is to make the business so boring by building a team and automating processes and things like that and hiring a CEO to manage that team. So now you still own the business, but you're not having to work in it. You're no longer trading time for money in that business. This is actually what Warren Buffett does, right? Like he built businesses. He now owns 33 businesses, but he doesn't work in any of them. Oh, thank you, Angel. I really appreciate you sharing that. So her freedom number for today is $20K a month, but she's struggling with the future because inflation will make that number very small. Yeah, that's true. There are some really good inflation calculators online. I'll see if I can drop a link to them after this training. But another thing to just consider is making sure that you remember that your freedom number should include money, extra cash each month that you will use to continue investing. right? Because remember, once you hit your freedom number, you might quit your job or you might sell your business at that point or what have you, but that doesn't mean you have to stop investing. So once you hit that freedom number, I've had a few clients who went, okay, great, I'm just going to keep going. I have one client, we actually joke, her and I, about how she's a little bit of a dragon, right? Like you see these dragons in fantasy stories and they're always like hoarding all this gold. Her favorite thing to do is hoard gold, I swear. Like she'll open a new boring business and then, I'll talk to her 6 months later. She's like, oh yeah, I'm already thinking about a second location. I'm like, girl, you were financially free so long ago. She's just playing a totally different game. Her game is on a totally different level now. So don't forget that, like, it's not like your game in life will stop when you become financially free. You'll be playing on a whole nother level. And when you're at that level, oftentimes you naturally attract investors. I get asked all the time by clients and also just random women I meet, like, oh, hey, are you doing any real estate deals right now? I want to invest, or what deals are you doing right now? Real estate or not? I'm looking for somewhere to drop 250K. Like, I get asked all the time if I want to do deals with people. So just realize that, yeah, I love that, Angel. That's awesome. Put money in the magic box. Like, it makes it more money. Yes, exactly. Just remember, like, once you hit that freedom number, the wrong thing to do is to stop. Then the right thing to do is to pick a bigger game and just keep playing that game. And that way, inflation just will become the least of your problems. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be like this scary thing, even though inflation totally sucks. Okay, so we're going through the 5 ways for a business owner to retire. 3 of them are to sell the business. 1 is to make the business super boring and hold on to it, but you've got a CEO who runs it for you. The last one is my favorite. So let's go through these each one by one, okay? Once you've identified your freedom number, we have to figure out, like, how are we going to get there? Sometimes getting there involves selling your business today. And in fact, just last week, I spoke to 2 women. Both of them are approaching retirement age, or one of them is even past retirement age, but just by a few months. Okay. And they both own successful 6-figure businesses. Well, one of them is a 7-figure business. The other one's a high 6-figure business. In both cases, they were like, I don't know. I don't have any other investments. I don't think I'll ever retire. And in both instances, by crunching the numbers, I could see that if we just sold the business literally today, that lump sum invested would make it possible for them to retire today. Okay. So don't discount that your business oftentimes is one of the most valuable assets you own, way more valuable than your car, your home, anything like that. So we want to make sure you're doing occasionally, right? Maybe every year or 2, a third-party valuation. A valuation simply means some third party, like a business broker or a bank, is coming in and they're doing an assessment of what the actual hard cash value of your business is. Keeping track of the value of your business can really help with your retirement planning, because it gives you this idea of, hey, if I did decide to just shut the doors, stop everything and sell the business today, not shut the doors, but you know what I mean, like exit the doors, right? Exit out the front door and sell the business today. How much would that be worth to me? And by selling that business, there's actually 2 ways we can turn that into passive income, which we'll talk about in a minute. The way that you sell your business is probably going to be a little bit different depending on your industry. So that's why I said 3 of them involve selling your business. 1 is to sell your business to a partner. Okay, I see this a lot with doctors' offices, with attorneys' offices, a lot of service-based businesses that are specialists, right? Plumbers, HVAC, those types of businesses where you have a specialty do really well with this business model of retirement, because what you do is you just, you have a young, fresh out of school attorney, and you bring them on as an associate, and then over time you're grooming them in, you're teaching them your ways, you're teaching them how to get great results, and then over time you go, hey, you got really good credit, you've been doing a great job, would you like to start taking on more management roles and maybe buy into the practice? So maybe in the beginning they buy in and they have like 2% ownership or 10% ownership, and then over time they can actually buy you out, or they can go get an SBA loan and buy you out in a lump sum and just get you out of there when you're ready to retire. So that's a great strategy, like I said, for any businesses that are a little bit more specialized, like doctors' offices, veterinarians, lawyers, things like that. The second one is to just find a private buyer. There are actually huge Facebook groups. Like, I'm talking hundreds of thousands of investors in these Facebook groups that are just about buying and selling businesses. Okay, this is such a trend that you want to jump on if you're planning to retire in the next 5 years, because finding a private buyer is a long process. You want to start this process as early as possible. Like I said, at least 5 years before you plan to retire is probably the right time to start looking at what does it take to do that. Because you need to, we'll get into some details. I don't want to jump ahead. We're going to get into that. Okay. How do we actually set up the business to be sold? But finding a private buyer can be a lengthy process, and it's an important one to get right, because the wrong buyer could actually hurt you financially, right? So we got to take a look at that. The third way you can sell your business is to obtain a buyout or merger. I see that a lot more in like SaaS companies. So software as a service, if you've developed an app or something like that, you try to get bought out by Google or bought out by Amazon, right? Also, like in the beauty industry, it's pretty popular to get a buyout as a way to retire. Or a merger, right? Mergers do happen, but again, they're usually with bigger businesses. So those are the three ways you can sell your business. The fourth one, like I said, is to make your business so boring that you can still own it, but you don't have to work in it. This one, number 4, it takes the most in terms of technical skill. You have to be a master at HR. You have to be a master at automating. You have to be a master at organization, or you have to have very skilled managers beneath you handling those things in order to build a truly boring business that the owner just never really has to touch. There's a lot of trust that goes into hiring a CEO. There's also usually a very large paycheck that goes with hiring a CEO that is that competent. So where I see boring businesses making the most sense for a retirement plan is usually either online businesses, because they have extremely high profit margins, and so they can afford a high paying job like a CEO, and they can afford a really high caliber CEO, right? That's difficult to do if you have a small profit margin. The other place I see boring businesses making a lot of sense is if you have a family-owned business and your kids got into the business too, right? I see this all the time. In fact, my father is doing that right now. He's grooming in his 2 sons, and I've always done his bookkeeping and his financials and whatnot. So he's kind of grooming in his kids to start taking over more and more of the business. And as time has gone on, he's passed more and more hats to us, to the point where he does a lot less in the business than he used to. So that can be a really good strategy, as well as a succession plan. If you want to pass your business on to your kids, it's a good way to do it as a retirement plan. And then lastly is to make the business just one of many cash flowing assets that you own. And I said in the beginning, or not at the beginning, but on the previous slide, that number 5 is actually my favorite. And the reason for that is this: 1 through 4 are missing this one key financial principle, and that is diversification. So if you're putting all your eggs in one basket, what happens if that basket develops a hole and the eggs all fall out and crack and die? Right? What happens if someone steals your basket? What happens if you get sued? What happens if the economy crashes or your industry becomes redundant? What's the word I'm looking for? Not redundant. Anyway, you guys get my point, right? Where it becomes like obsolete. That's the word. What happens if your industry becomes obsolete, right? I mean, look at movie theaters. Movie theaters are doing great still, some of them, but they've been around forever. But Netflix kind of came in and took over a lot of what movie theaters used to do, right? So technical advances can get in the way. There's so many things that could go wrong when all you're doing is just putting all your beans in one basket. So that's why I like to say that number 5 is the best retirement strategy for a business owner, where yes, we might still use one of these other 4 strategies. You might still sell your business. You might still make your business boring, but we are also investing in other cash flowing assets like real estate, like dividend paying stocks, things like that. You can't get that same popcorn. Yeah, that's true. I personally still love going to the movies, and I go way too often. So maybe it wasn't the best analogy, but you get my point, right? There is such a thing as obsolete industries. You don't see a lot of buggy whips being made anymore, right? Like if you built horse-drawn carriages, that might have been a better example. Okay, so The point here is to pick which of these 5 strategies you're going to hone in on. And my recommendation, if you're asking, is number 5. You might sell your business, you might make it boring, but you're also investing in other cash flowing assets. Okay. Inside the passive income pathway coaching program, I do teach 7 different strategies that you can use. And they're all strategies that either I myself personally am investing in that way and can prove that it works, or they're ways that I've helped clients to actually accomplish financial freedom or build wealth using those cash flowing assets. Okay. So if you're interested in learning more about that, comment the word passive below, and I will definitely get you a really good little retirement plan that you can actually follow step by step. Okay. Now, I promised to teach you a little bit more deep dive into if selling your business is a part of your retirement plan, how do we actually do that? Because I hear a lot of business women say, oh yeah, my business is my retirement plan. And they kind of use it as sort of like a brush off, right? Like, I don't want to talk to a financial advisor because that's my retirement plan, but they don't really quite actually know how that all works. So today we're going to lift the curtain and give you step by step how you actually sell a business and how selling a business can actually be a retirement plan and how to not just blow that money on shoes, right? Okay. So the first principle you have to understand, as you can see on the slide, is most businesses will sell for between 1 and 10 times EBITDA. What is EBITDA? Well, EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. It's basically another way of saying your profitability, your net income. So one thing I like to do with my clients is, because we don't always have like all of our financial information right there on the call when they're meeting with me, even though I wish you would. But if you don't, then I ask them, what was your take home from your business last year? So I think everybody who's on live right now could probably answer that question, right? Like, Nathan, Angel, I'm curious, what was your take home from your business last year? If you don't want to drop it in the chat, that's okay. But just think about that number for a minute. Now let's go back to this slide for a second, because most businesses will sell for between 1 and 10 times that number. Whatever your take home from the business was last year, after taxes, before interest, before taxes, before depreciation, before amortization, right? What were your earnings? So if we look at that number in your business, if you sold your business for that number, could you retire tomorrow? Like, did you have 2.5 million in after taxes or before taxes income last year? If no, then probably there's a few things we need to do to increase the value of your business before we sell it. We don't want to just go put it on the market today because it's probably not ready for that yet. Okay. So as you see, 1 to 10 times is a pretty big gap too. And people often ask me like, well, how do I get to the 10? The truth is that there are a lot of factors that can impact what multiple of EBITDA you're going to be able to request or demand from a buyer if they're going to buy your business. One of those things is your industry. That kind of seems to set a standard in certain industries of like what percentage of EBITDA or what multiple of EBITDA they can sell for. But remember, that's not something you control, right? What we can control are a few different things. Number one, you can control maximizing the resale value. Okay, here's some ways you can document your systems. If I had 2 businesses that I was going to buy, and one of them was like a hot mess, nobody knew where the bookkeeping was, no one could tell me how they attracted their last 10 clients, and the owner did everything. Or option 2, a business that had beautiful bookkeeping, it had documented processes. I could see exactly at the click of a button where the last 10, 20, 30 clients came from, what the time period was between first contact with that client and the close, right? Like, if I could see those numbers and see that documentation on the flow line of that business, and it had teams in place or automation so that it wasn't all just the business owner running everything, which of those 2, let's say they were both valued at the same amount, or they both were going to cost me the same amount, which of those 2 businesses do you think I was going to buy? Right? Option A, tons of headaches, Probably not going to be profitable at the beginning. Might see a really big dip in revenue that first year because I'm trying to figure out how to do everything all kind of from scratch because I don't have any documentation and I'm not that business owner. I don't have the same personality as he did, right? Option A. Option B, I walk in, it's turnkey. I know where the numbers are. I know exactly what needs to be done. I can hire a team member and they've already got a job description written, right? That business can be way easier to sell. And all other factors being the same, that business will probably be worth more. I can demand a higher price for that business, even though its revenue might be the same as option A. Its EBITDA might even be the same as option A, but I can charge more for the sale of that business because of documented processes and systemized business. Okay. Is this making sense to you guys? Give me a yes in the chat if you're like, I'm seeing what I should be doing in my business right now, even though I might be 30 years away from retirement. I can see what I need to be doing in my business right now to make it worth selling. Give me a yes in the chat if you guys are seeing this. Okay. Number two, second thing we can do to increase that value and be getting more closer to 10 times EBITDA than one time, right? Repeatable revenue. Does your business start at zero every single month? That's a really tough business to sell because, right, like every single month revenue starts at zero and we start the clock all over again. And you got bills to pay, we got overhead, we got, clients to find, things like that. Business is just going to be harder to sell. That doesn't mean it's not worth as much, but it's still going to, it's a harder negotiation that needs to occur versus the business that can say, hey, I've had, like Angel, right? Look at your business. Like if you had one property that had sat empty for 10 years and one property that had, four renters who had lived, one in each of 4 bedrooms or something, and they had lived there for 10 years, which property would be easier to sell, right? The one that had been vacant or the one that had been filled? So the same thing with our business. If I can show, hey, every single month on day one, January 1st, February 1st, March 1st, we start the clock at 30,000 in revenue from monthly recurring revenue, and we go up from there with any sales. That's a much easier sell, right? So this is why, again, memberships, subscriptions, any kind of passive income we can add to a business, book funnels, online courses, right? I do this with my doctor's offices. I do this with my attorney clients. I do this with all of my clients who come to me that have business starts at zero every single month, okay? We want to add those passive income streams. We want to add monthly recurring revenue if you plan to sell that business as your retirement, because those things do not spring up overnight. You don't usually go from 0 monthly recurring revenue to 6 figures of monthly recurring revenue in a few months, right? That takes time to build that in most cases, unless you have an enormous advertising budget. So we want to start that process early if you plan to sell your business as a retirement plan. Okay. Number 3, let's say you're 5 years away. You are 5 years away or less from your desired retirement date or financial freedom date. Let's start calling it that, right? What are some things we should be doing to prep the business for sale? Number 1, we want to find someone who can do that third-party valuation I talked about, right? Let's get a baseline. What is the business worth now? Then we add more systems and processes. We do a better job of documentation, and then we get another third-party valuation and get a new number, right? But we want to just start with a baseline. So that if you're thinking about selling in the next 5 years or less, that's the first thing I would do. Now, here in Kansas City, I actually have a business broker I work with who will do a free third-party valuation for all my clients. So if you are a client of record, reach out to me. We can do a valuation of your business today, okay? Number 2, start automating that lead generation. 25% of all businesses struggle with marketing. Marketing is just, right, how do we generate interest in people? So the more we can systematize the marketing systems of the business, the easier it will be to sell that business. And you'll probably make more money in the meantime too, right? after the lead generation, then we want to start automating sales processes as much as possible. And again, this really depends on the business model. Sometimes we're going to fully automate it. Sometimes we're just going to drill the heck out of your team. I actually have another coaching program. It's called Plan Her Profits, where I help my 6-figure business owners go to 7 figures simply by increasing their profit margin, which makes it possible for them to spend more on ads and spend more on marketing so they can get to 7 figures, right? And inside Plan Her Profits, every single Wednesday morning, I drill my clients' team on sales, okay? Whichever salesman in their practice or in their business that isn't doing well. Could be a receptionist. Receptionist does need sales skills, right? You get tire kickers who call and go, hey, I'm thinking about, oh yeah, I'm just curious what your guys' prices are. That's a tire kicker. That salesperson, that receptionist, has to be really good at turning that tire kicker into an appointment or turning that tire kicker into a sale. No matter what your industry is, right? Receptionists, salespeople, appointment setters, no matter whether you're online, offline, whatever type of business you have, inside Plan Her Profits, we role play and drill and go over sales scripts and things like that. It may not sound like something a financial advisor typically does, and it's not, but I know that if I can turn you and your team into killer salespeople, that business is going to sell for 10 times EBITDA, not 1 time EBITDA. Okay. So this is in my best interest. If I can do just, on a group call, 1 hour a week on a Wednesday, help all of my clients to improve their sales processes and improve their lead gen, I know that I can then get you way more money when you sell your business, and now we can go invest it together. And that's where I'm headed, right? So I'm taking the long game, but that's something to think about. If you're not in an industry that's easy to, automate your sales process, like a wedding venue, you're never going to fully automate a sales process of a wedding venue, right? No, because couples, they want to come see the space. They need to be toured around the venue, right? You're not going to automate that. So there's a limit to how much we can actually automate, but we can hire, outsource, and train. And that's the other place. If you're not going to automate that sales process, if you're not going to automate the lead gen, then have a team member and get them super trained and make sure that that team member is not planning to retire the same day you do, right? That team member has to stay with the business after you leave in order to add that value back into the business. Okay, if we're talking about it as a retirement plan, it's very, very important that you're hiring these team members who want to stick around. Okay, don't hire transients who want to leave the same time you do or sooner. All right, step number 4, if you're within 5 years of selling, right? You're thinking about retiring early, or you're at retirement age and you're like, I'm ready, I'm done, I want to get out of my business. 4th step is we have to decide on financing. And this is a big decision because it will change how we even approach the sale of the business, okay? It's going to impact a lot of the decisions we will make in the direction of selling that business. So this is a decision we kind of want to make pretty early on. And again, this is a decision you should not be just making in a vacuum on your own. Speak to your financial advisor. Hello, right? Speak to your attorney. Get a better idea of, what the possibilities are. Speak to your bank, right? Really understand how SBA loans work for that person who's trying to buy your business. Understand that process. So there's 2 main ways we can sell a business. We can sell it for a lump sum where someone just comes and writes a check, right? Or we can do what's called seller financing, owner financing. So seller financing or owner financing is when you become the bank. Someone comes to you and they say, hey, I want to buy your business. I see it's valued at $1.5 million. I have $250,000 I can do as a down payment, but I don't have access to $1.5 million in funding. And they've tried all their resources. They cannot get enough funding to buy your business, okay? When that happens, you have the option to become the bank. You go, hey, look, I will enter into a contractual agreement with you where you will buy my business from me and pay me monthly payments every single month because I am personally loaning you the money to buy my business. Now, why would I do that? Who can give me in the chat? I'm curious what you guys think. Why would I offer seller financing? An interesting question. I'm curious to see what you guys think. What would be the benefit to me? What would be the benefit to the buyer, right? Why would they want to? Because I'm usually going to charge interest. So over time, it's going to end up costing them more. Why would they want to do that? Let's see what you guys say. I'll tell you one reason, as you're putting this in the chat, hopefully some people are typing right now. One reason that I would consider offering seller financing is because of that passive income stream, right? Now, instead of having to figure out where to invest my lump sum, I actually end up having built-in cash flow, even though I've exited the business. I'm getting monthly payments every single month from the new owner. Now that's risky because as the bank, I'm taking on the risk of that loan. And if that person sucks at business, they might default on my loan and they'll have done a shitty job with my business, which is why they couldn't pay the loan. And so now I have a mess where I have to take back over the business and it may not be in the as good of shape as I left it. Right? So it is a little bit more risky. Angel says, yeah, flexible terms. That's absolutely true, right? I can charge more because I'm offering those flexible terms, right? So in a lump sum, maybe I would get 1.5. By breaking it up month by month over the next 15 years or 5 years or whatever I want to do, maybe I end up ultimately getting 2 mil, right? So it depends on what your goal is, what your financial goal is, right? And this is where speaking with your financial advisor in your unique situation, looking at the credit worthiness of the person who's buying the business and how much business acumen skills, right? How much business experience they have. If I were, a dentist selling my practice to an up-and-coming dentist who had just graduated dental school yesterday and has never run a business, I probably wouldn't offer owner financing. Right? Guy's never owned a business before, never been a dentist professionally before. He doesn't really know what he's doing. And, that's a very risky direction, right? But that young dentist, if he's got good credit, he could probably qualify for an SBA loan and go get a lump sum and he could write me a check. So I might accept that, right? But if it's, an associate doctor who I've worked with forever, I know his work ethic, I see how great of a dentist he is, I've worked with him for a long time, I trust him, and I know that because he's worked with me a long time, he knows how I do things, he knows how the business runs. That person, I personally would probably feel a lot more comfortable offering owner financing to that dentist, right? So it's just something to keep in mind. And it's something to, again, don't make this decision in a vacuum. Work with a team of experts, right? Use us for what we're meant for. And that's where my next slide comes in, okay? During this process of selling your business as part of your retirement plan, here are the professionals that you want to have in your network. Okay. Number one, a business broker. The business broker is going to charge you a little bit of money, but not upfront. They're going to get they're kind of like a real estate agent, right? They get their commission when the business sells. And their job is to go help you find a buyer and to maintain confidentiality, which can be very important because you may not want your whole team to know you're selling that business until it's ready, right? So that could be really important to work with a business broker. Number two, a financial advisor. Hello, especially one who has experience with buying and selling businesses. Don't just go down to Edward Jones or, your grandma's financial advisor, right? You want to work with someone who knows what they're doing. Number three, an attorney. A lawyer who's going to look over your final purchasing paperwork, help you make sure that you're working with qualified investors, right? Get that contract and make sure that that contract doesn't say anything weird that's going to bite you later. Those are super important. And lastly, a CPA. There are definite tax implications when you buy or sell a business. Capital gains tax can really hit you if you don't know what you're doing. So working with a CPA. So here's one piece of advice, okay? You do not want to have met your attorney for the first time the day you sell your business, right? You do not want to have met your financial advisor for the first time 2 weeks before you sell your business. Like, build this network. Have these professionals in your team. Either they're already on retainer, or if that just financially doesn't make sense because you're not ready to use them yet, then build a relationship with them. Take them out to golf, go out to lunch, network with them. Really get to know these professionals because you have to, when the time comes to sell that business, you have to trust their advice, right? You have to know that they're looking out for you and that they have your best interest at heart, not their own. right? I am a fiduciary. That means legally I am obligated to do what is in your best interest, but not my own. But just because I'm legally obligated doesn't necessarily mean you will trust me. So you have to be able to trust me. And if that's going to happen, I recommend having that relationship ahead of time. I'm not telling you you have to take me out to lunch. I'll pay, right? But let's actually build that relationship so we know, like, and trust each other before this happens, okay? So thank you guys so much for coming on today. I did want to just share with you again, we do have a free guide that goes with this training. It's called the Ultimate Retirement Guide for Busy Business Owners. If you comment the word workbook below, I will absolutely make sure that you get a copy. Yeah, Angel, I agree. Some professionals have been doing this a little bit longer than others, and some of them just specialize in different things. So, if you have a family attorney who's worked with you forever, but he's never worked with business owners, he's never specialized in that, and he usually helps 9-to-5ers with their divorce, that's not the person you want to have on your team for this project. So knowing what that professional specializes in is a big, big factor. All right. Thank you so much, you guys, for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I hope this has been helpful for you. Please do me the great honor of sharing your feedback below. It always helps me when you share honest feedback on what you thought, that I can also use down the road to help other people come to trainings like this. Okay. I'll talk to you soon and have a great week.